I'm here with retired Colonel Tim Leaptrott, who served in the United States Air Force for 26 years. Now, can you tell me a little bit about your military service?
Well, I joined the military in 1980 after I graduated from Erskine College in Due West, South Carolina. It's a small Presbyterian school, about 800 students. I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do. I was a psychology major, so I was either stuck finding a job outside my major, or I had to go back to school and get a master's or a doctorate degree. So my roommate came home one night, my second semester, my senior year, and said, "Hey, well, why don't you go talk to a recruiter?" I talked to one today, and I started looking at his, I call it a propaganda. It was their pamphlets that talk about the military, and it was all about flying, and it was the Air Force. So I thought, wow, this looks pretty interesting. So I went and talked to a recruiter and decided to join. I got accepted into officer training school and navigator training, and so I finished that. Was a navigator for 3 years in B-52s, and then I went to pilot training, and I asked to go back to B-52s. I flew B-52s the majority of my career, and I had several command tours, and then I went to the Pentagon and served there, and then I was selected for group command after my squadron command and my Pentagon tour, and got to fly the B-1. And so I did that for several years. I flew in Operation Desert Storm, Allied Force, Iraqi Freedom, and Enduring Freedom, and had about 5,000 hours, and about 600 of that was combat. Spent 26 years in, retired in January of 2007.
Did you feel free to talk about your faith in the military?
I did. I was in during a period of, or during a time where we didn't have to worry about political correctness so much. We were celebrated when we came back from Desert Storm. I can remember being asked to speak just before we left. I was stationed in Morón, Spain, and I flew missions out of there into Iraq. And I was asked to speak by my wing commander, who was a one-star, and to go and speak in the chapel. And so I talked to the folks about what it was like to fly in combat. And I said, because of my faith, I was able to have peace. And it's sort of like being in the center or in the eye of a hurricane. Things can be going crazy around you, but there's that calmness in the center of the hurricane. And that's what it's like to be a follower of Christ. And so I spoke there, and once we returned to the States, I was asked by my church in Bossier City, Louisiana. It was First Baptist Bossier, to speak to a group of people there as well. And so we were very free to speak about our faith. During Operation Allied Force, I was the squadron commander of B-52 Squadron, flying out of Fairford, England. And I was asked by my public affairs officer if I would give an interview with CBS this morning. And much to my reluctance, or I tried to be avoided as much as I could, but my arm was twisted sufficiently, so I agreed to do an interview with them. And they asked me about what it was like to go and fly and actually bomb, and the thought of actually killing people. And I shared with them my faith at that point on live television, This Morning America, CBS. And I told them, every morning I got up to either go fly a mission myself or sent my guys out to fly, I would pray. And I would pray for the lives of the people, not only of my guys that were flying in harm's way, but also the people on the ground. Because to me it was very important that that God was in control, and that as long as we were serving our nation, and our nation asked us to go and do this, then we had an obligation, because God ordained our governments, and so we had an obligation to go and do it. And none of us want war, none of us like war, and our goal was to end the war as quickly as we could. But I had an opportunity to talk about my faith on live TV, and I did that as well. And that was probably in 1992 or somewhere around that time frame. Hard to remember now when that was.
Have you seen a change in the Christianity being allowed in America while you were in the Air Force?
Well, not so much being allowed in America, but I could see a sea change. The longer that I was the more things began to move toward a political correctness. And I think what happens a lot of times is that there are subtle changes that happen along the way, and you don't really notice them until you look back and you go, wow, things have changed a great deal. And I think the less we're involved in government and the more that that we allow progressives to start dictating what should happen in America, then we're going to see more and more changes. So yes, as I got toward the end of my career, I could see different things happening. They allowed Wiccans to celebrate inside the chapel their religion. They started to take down the crosses on the chapels on some bases, and I can remember several things like that beginning to happen. They were less friendly about you talking about God in your speeches and things like that. So I could see it changing toward the end of my career.
What about after you retired?
I think since I've been out, it has the changes accelerated even more. I read an article within the last month about I believe it was a squadron commander who wrote a personal story in the newspaper of the base newspaper, I think, and he was reprimanded because it was all about God and his faith, and he was reprimanded for mixing God and religion and the military, which I find just unfathomable. Our nation was built on a Judeo-Christian view, and our founders were certainly, most of them were Christian, some were deist, but the majority of our founders certainly believed in God. And behind me you see George Washington praying after many of his battles, and there's so many great stories about our founding fathers and the way that God moved in their lives and helped this nation to be born. So I've seen a lot of changes. I've seen a lot of negative discussion about Christianity. I think you can just tell with all the wars that we're fighting now against Muslims and the way we're treating Muslims, almost giving them a pass. It has changed quite a significant amount.
Is there anything we can do to change the tide?
I think we have to be involved. I think probably our biggest problem in America is individuals that aren't involved in the process. And I think we get tired of hearing the same battles and the same arguments in Washington, and we just turn a deaf ear to it so often. I think Edmund Burke once said that the only thing for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing. And I think that's so true. So many good people have a personal faith, and they have, their families that they've instilled Christianity to. But they don't go beyond that. They don't go beyond their family or their neighborhoods into their community at large and into politics. And I think we need more good men running for office that have a Christian worldview. And not to lord it over anybody, because I don't think we need to be dictating Christianity to others, but I think we need to be free to discuss our faith. And so, yeah, I think especially young people today, college people, I think have a great opportunity to make a big change. But it takes individuals to make a commitment to be involved in the process of America.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.